It's really my great honor right now to introduce our first session. And as has been our custom in these meetings, we're going to start with a patient story. And this is a particularly compelling story. I met Bridgette Hempstead, the president and founder of Cierra Sisters, last December when we were both speakers at a conference called Endwell in San Francisco. And I was going on stage right after she basically took down the house. and someone, as I was walking onto the stage, someone said to me, "Well, that's a hard act to follow." And I said, actually, no, it's not, because she absolutely demonstrates why we're investing in this work and why palliative care for all is so important. And so Bridgette really demonstrates exactly the importance of the conversation that we're going to be having today and the importance of us all acting on what we hear. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Bridgette.
Let's see, I need the little
I'll grab it.
forward. Well, while she's getting that for me, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me here today. It's quite an honor. Thank you. So, Bridgette Hempstead, I was diagnosed with breast cancer on my 35th birthday. And when I went in to go and get an exam, asked the doctor to get a mammogram, she told me that there was no need to get a mammogram, and these are the reasons why. She said, for one, my age. Two, I didn't have any signs or symptoms, even though Caucasian women were told to get a baseline mammogram. At that time, it was 1996, to get a baseline mammogram at 35. And she says, well, you don't need to get one because you're African American and black women are not affected by breast cancer, so come back in 10 years. So I had to advocate that moment for myself, and I told her I want to get a mammogram and I want it now. And so she was very irritated with my demand, but she went ahead and gave me the mammogram. And then my diagnosis came on my 35th birthday. She called me later and she says, I have to apologize, and I'm glad that you pushed the issue to get a mammogram because I've been taught that black women don't need to get mammograms because breast cancer don't affect this community. You got to remember in 1996, there were nothing but Caucasian women celebrating breast cancer, pink, survivors. They weren't talking about disparities. It wasn't important back then. So because I was diagnosed and because I was told that black women didn't get mammograms, I became educating it right away to our community. So that's how Cierra Sisters was founded and born out of the fact that I was told this doesn't hit my community. Cierra is an African word that means knowing. If you have knowledge, you have the power to fight against the effects of breast cancer. So fast forward to 18 years later, I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer disease to my lungs and my liver. And unfortunately, it didn't seem like the healthcare system changed very much for black women in 18 years. I went into the emergency room and I was having problems breathing, very serious problems breathing. And so the first doctor that I saw, she did a bunch of tests and she says, I'm getting ready to leave my shift. She grabbed my shoulders. I was heavily medicated. And she says, I'm going to be leaving, but I want you to make sure that in the morning you call your doctor and you get a follow-up to find out what I saw on your exams, on your chest exams. And so I said, okay. She says, there's another doctor that's coming in after me. My shift is over. I need you to make sure you follow up. So she left and the other doctor came in and he says, I think it's just only a glitch that we see. It's something, don't even worry about it. He gave me a bottle of cough medicine and he says, and if anything persists, then come back in a few weeks. Don't worry about it. So that morning, I called my doctor's office and I said, I saw two doctors last night. The first doctor told me that I needed to make sure I follow up because there's some further tests that I need. So she says, no, your follow-up plan is to take the medicine, and if anything else persists, you'll be fine, and then you can come in. So I said, no, this doctor told me I have to follow up. She gasped as she looked further into the notes, and she says, oh my God, the orders were erased. And so she says, so then the ball started rolling, and I was diagnosed with metastatic disease. Unfortunately, as the story continues, then I was seeing the oncologist, and the oncologist was telling me, you're not going to live a year and you'll never sing again. Well, that's not true. So 6 months later, I was invited to sing the national anthem at the Seahawks-Cowboys game. When that doctor told me that, I told her I don't receive it in the name of Jesus. And my daughter was with me. I don't remember that. So these are stories that she's telling me. And she says, well, Mom, get your clothes on. It's time for us to go. I think she didn't know what was going to happen next. And so we left. And it's really interesting how a doctor wants to give you a death sentence right away when you're diagnosed with some serious illness, instead of saying, you know what, let's see what we can do for you. They're doing this for other cultures, and they're doing this for Caucasian women. Well, let's see what we can do. We know that this disease may end up progressing, but at this point, what kind of treatments are available? That doctor also denied me of a clinical trial, which brings me to the next slide. Bonnie was a sister that had flew from Alaska to come to Seattle for treatment, and she had breast cancer. But the breast cancer had progressed, and unfortunately, they didn't tell her that she had metastatic disease. They didn't even offer her any clinical trials. My doctor told me that she refused to give me a clinical trial, that she was not going to sign the paperwork for me to get it. Bonnie didn't even know about clinical trials until she came to me and to Cierra Sisters. So we were able to get her into the clinical trial, and her body started to respond, but unfortunately, the disease had progressed too much for her, and it took her life. So had she had been offered the clinical trial at the beginning of the onset of her having metastatic disease, would she still be here today? Would she be able to take palliative care? We don't know that, because she was also mistreated by the healthcare system. So what I did as an organizer is I became to start this program. It's called CEPS, Community Empowerment Partnerships. It's a train-the-trainer educational program. We had always been doing a train-the-trainer, but we wanted to make sure that we had an evidence-based organization, and wanted to train individuals from the community and make sure that they knew how to educate the community with an evidence-based toolkit. So we took 14 African-American women, and they were recruited as, served as peer-to-peer educators, and we sent them out to the communities, and with incredible results. So the Community Empowerment Partnerships was later on published in a medical journal, the Publications for Health Promotion of Disease. And we're really happy about that, because it was Springer. It's a partnership with Fred Hutch, a small grant that we received from them, and it's gone and done incredible things. These women in the community are empowered. They know how to talk to the community. They know how to teach the community how to navigate through that very complicated healthcare system. And unfortunately, that system is still broken for our community members, because we're hearing of these atrocities that are still happening today. 2019, things have not changed. They're very horrifying, and we are just at a point of we have to continue to scream at the top of our lungs to make a difference in our community. It shouldn't be like this. So this is the first group that was trained, and the reason why we have our hands up is because we're demonstrating that we're pushing our community up. We are really celebrating them, and we want to make sure that they have the tools and they have the keys to make a difference in the community. Well, the CEPS program became very noticeable in the Seattle area, and then we found out there's another disparities group. Black women with endometrial cancer. The reason why you don't see Black women with endometrial cancer is because they are dying. They're not there. Why? They're diagnosed later. We're finding out that those women are not given the same treatment as white women when it's completely showing what type of treatment they should have. They're not offered that. They don't know what to ask for, so what did we do? We created Icona with Dr. Kimmy Dole. We just did a national launch 2 weeks ago in Hawaii. And these are Icona women diagnosed with endometrial cancer, and they're going back to their communities to take the SEPS educational toolkit that we adapted for Icona, and they are going back into 11 different states so that they can go and teach their community how to access the healthcare system when there's signs and symptoms that are clearly there, but ignored by the medical community. And so they know how to fight. They know what to do. They know how to talk to their community, and they know how to advocate for their community. It's very important. So please watch as Icona 2019 comes out. You see these powerful Black women. So the reason why I do this, life is continually for me worth living. The reason why I advocate and educate every day, my 3 daughters, Dolores, Shaprice, and Shayla, and my 2 grandchildren, Joshua and Joel. They are the fuel that feeds my soul, and that even though I've been diagnosed with metastatic disease and I'm still here 5.5, almost 6 years later, and I continue to do that work, I continue to sing, I continue to educate and empower and bringing about a voice to our community, which seems sometimes very voiceless. And so that's what I do for our community. Bridgette Hempstead.
Thank you, Bridgette. Will you sing a little bit for us now?
I will, absolutely. I'll sing His Eyes on the Sparrow. We know that that is one of the songs that many of us sing. And His Eyes on the Sparrow is a song that I started singing when I left the hospital and they told me I had breast cancer at 35. Why should I be discouraged? And why do the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home when Jesus is my portion? A constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. And I sing because I'm happy, oh yes I am. And I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Thank you, Peggy.
Woo. Now, will you sit up at the table?
I will.